The sky above New York City turned dark as massive alien ships descended from space. These ships were enormous, shaped like jagged mountains made of steel and glowing with strange lights. They blocked out the sun and cast long shadows over the city. People stopped what they were doing and looked up in shock. Panic spread quickly through the streets as everyone realized this was no ordinary event. The invaders called themselves the Vorthok Empire. They were a powerful civilization that traveled across the stars, conquering weaker species to expand their territory. At the heart of humanity's response stood Daniel Carter, a seasoned military strategist who had spent years preparing for moments like this. He wasn't just any soldier. He had studied countless scenarios involving alien invasions, always thinking ahead about how Earth could defend itself. Alongside him was Laura Bennett, a brilliant physicist known for her groundbreaking work in quantum energy manipulation. Together, they were summoned to a secret underground bunker where world leaders had gathered to figure out what to do next. Everyone was scared, but Daniel and Laura remained calm. They knew fear wouldn't solve anything. Inside the bunker, there was chaos. Some leaders argued for diplomacy, hoping to negotiate peace with the invaders. Others believed resistance was useless because the aliens clearly had superior technology. But Daniel had a different idea. He reminded everyone that humanity had faced impossible odds before, and won. "We're not helpless," he said firmly. "We've got something they don't expect: creativity, determination, and the ability to adapt. That's our advantage." As the debate raged on, the Vorthok fleet began broadcasting messages across all communication channels. Their voices sounded cold and mechanical, demanding unconditional surrender within 24 hours. If Earth refused, they warned, destruction would follow. Images of burning cities and fleeing civilians filled the screens, showing what awaited if humanity didn't comply. It was terrifying, but it also fueled Daniel's resolve. He glanced at Laura, who nodded silently. They both understood what needed to be done. Hours earlier, when the first reports of the alien ships came in, Daniel had already started making plans. He contacted key personnel around the world, ensuring that every available resource was mobilized. Troops were placed on high alert, air defenses were activated, and emergency protocols went into effect. Meanwhile, Laura reached out to her team of scientists, asking them to prepare experimental technologies that might give Earth an edge against the invaders. None of these tools had been tested in real combat, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Back in the bunker, tensions continued to rise. One leader suggested sending a message of surrender right away, hoping to save lives. Another argued that fighting back would only provoke more violence. Daniel listened patiently, letting them vent their fears and frustrations. When the room finally grew quiet, he spoke again. "Surrender isn't an option," he said. "If we give up now, we lose our chance to fight back later. And trust me, we can fight back." He explained his plan. Hidden deep beneath the Nevada desert was a top-secret project called Horizon. It had been developed over decades by some of the brightest minds on Earth. Among its innovations was a device called the Quantum Disruption Array, QDA. This machine was designed to destabilize matter at a molecular level, effectively breaking apart anything it targeted. While risky, it had the potential to neutralize the Vorthok ships without causing widespread damage to Earth itself. Laura stepped forward to elaborate. She described how the QDA worked, emphasizing its incredible power, but also its dangers. If used incorrectly, it could cause catastrophic harm not only to the enemy but also to the planet. However, she assured everyone that with careful planning, it could be controlled. "This is our best shot," she concluded. "But we need to act fast." The decision wasn't easy. World leaders debated for hours, weighing the risks and rewards. In the end, they agreed to move forward with Daniel and Laura's plan. Orders were issued to transport the QDA to a secure location near New York City, where it could target the largest concentration of Vorthok ships. Engineers and technicians worked tirelessly to prepare the device for activation, knowing failure wasn't an option. Outside the bunker, the situation grew worse. The Vorthok fleet began launching attacks targeting major cities around the globe. Explosions lit up the night sky as buildings crumbled and fires raged out of control. Civilians fled in terror, searching for safety while emergency services struggled to keep up. Despite the chaos, Daniel remained focused. He coordinated with military forces worldwide, directing efforts to distract the invaders and buy time for the QDA to become operational. In the control room, Laura monitored the progress of the array, her hands moving swiftly across keyboards and touchscreens. Her expression was tense but determined. Beside her, a young technician named Ethan whispered prayers under his breath, hoping their gamble would pay off. Outside, fighter jets engaged the smaller scout ships of the Vorthok fleet, drawing their attention away from the true objective hidden deep underground. Meanwhile, President Rachel Monroe addressed the nation via emergency broadcast. Her voice was steady yet urgent as she urged citizens to remain calm. "We are not merely victims of circumstance," she declared. "We are survivors, innovators, and defenders of our home. Today we will show the universe what it means to stand against tyranny." Her words resonated with millions of people watching from their homes, shelters, and hiding places. Hope began to flicker amidst the despair. With less than 12 hours left until the deadline, the QDA was almost ready. Daniel and Laura exchanged a glance, their eyes reflecting both determination and anxiety. They knew the coming hours would decide the fate of humanity. As they prepared for the final countdown, the Vorthok flagship transmitted another message. Their emperor, a towering figure clad in golden armor, appeared on screen. His voice dripped with arrogance as he sneered at humanity's defiance. "You have made your choice," he growled. "Prepare to face annihilation." Daniel clenched his fists tightly. "Not today," he muttered under his breath. Above ground, the skies remained dark, heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Yet below, the surface in the dimly lit control rooms and crowded bunkers, humanity held on to hope. For the first time in history, Earth faced an existential threat unlike any other, and it was ready to fight back. Deep beneath the Nevada desert, hidden from prying eyes and protected by layers of secrecy, lay Project Horizon. It was a classified initiative that had been quietly developed over decades, funded by governments and private organizations working together for one purpose: to prepare Earth for threats beyond its imagination. Few people knew about it, and even fewer understood the full scope of what it could do. But now, with the Vorthok Empire hovering above the planet, threatening annihilation, Project Horizon became humanity's last hope. Laura Bennett stood in the control room of the facility, surrounded by monitors displaying streams of data, blinking lights, and complex diagrams. Her team of scientists and engineers worked tirelessly, their faces pale but determined. They had never expected to use the Quantum Disruption Array, QDA, in real combat, but there was no time to hesitate. Laura took a deep breath and turned to Daniel Carter, who had just arrived after coordinating global military efforts. "This is it," she said softly. "If this doesn't work, we're out of options." Daniel nodded, his jaw tight with tension. He trusted Laura completely, but he couldn't ignore the risks. The QDA was powerful, too powerful. Designed to destabilize matter at a molecular level, it could tear apart anything it targeted. While it had the potential to destroy the Vorthok ships, it also carried the risk of causing unintended damage to Earth itself. Laura had assured him that they could minimize those risks with precise calibration, but nothing was guaranteed. Still, Daniel knew they had no choice. "Let's make it count," he replied firmly. Laura explained the plan again, speaking slowly so everyone in the room understood. The QDA would be transported to a secure location near New York City, where the largest concentration of Vorthok ships hovered menacingly. Once in position, the device would emit a pulse of energy strong enough to disrupt the molecular structure of the alien vessels. If everything went according to plan, the ships would disintegrate without harming the surrounding area. But timing was critical. The array needed several hours to charge fully, and every second counted as the invaders continued their assault on Earth. As preparations moved forward, tensions ran high. Technicians double-checked every connection, every circuit, ensuring nothing would fail when the moment came. Ethan, the young technician who had been whispering prayers earlier, wiped sweat from his forehead as he adjusted a panel on the QDA. "We've only got one shot at this," he muttered to himself. "One mistake, and it's all over." Nearby, another scientist named Clara reviewed the calculations one final time, her hands trembling slightly as she entered the numbers into the system. Everyone felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on them. Meanwhile, outside the facility, the world descended further into chaos. The Vorthok fleet intensified its attacks, targeting major cities across the globe. Fires raged through urban centers and smoke filled the air. Emergency services struggled to keep up as hospitals overflowed with injured civilians. In New York City, where the QDA was destined to be deployed, streets were deserted except for soldiers patrolling. In armored vehicles, fighter jets roared overhead, engaging smaller scout ships from the alien fleet in an effort to distract them from the true objective hidden underground. Back in the bunker, President Rachel Monroe addressed the nation once more. This time, her tone was stronger, more resolute. She spoke directly to the people, urging them to hold on just a little longer. "We are fighting not just for our survival, but for our future," she declared. "The men and women of Project Horizon are working around the clock to turn the tide of this battle. Trust in them, trust in each other. Together, we will prevail." Her words brought a flicker of hope to millions of frightened citizens watching, from their homes or hiding in shelters. For the first time since the invasion began, some dared to believe that humanity might actually stand a chance. While the president's message inspired courage, Daniel focused on logistics. He coordinated with military forces worldwide, ensuring that fighter jets and ground troops kept the invaders busy. Every distraction mattered, buying precious minutes for the QDA to become operational. Communication lines buzzed constantly as reports poured in from commanders on the front lines. Some units reported heavy losses while others claimed small victories against the alien scouts. Despite the grim updates, Daniel remained steadfast. "Keep pushing," he told his team. "Every second counts." Inside the control room, Laura monitored the progress of the QDA, her eyes darting between screens. The device required immense amounts of energy to function, and power levels fluctuated dangerously as it charged. Engineers scrambled to stabilize the flow, shouting instructions to one another as alarms blared intermittently. At one point, a sudden surge threatened to overload the system, forcing the team to shut down temporarily. Panic rippled through the room until Laura stepped in, her voice cutting through the noise like a knife. "Stay calm," she ordered. "We can fix this. Focus." Under her guidance, the problem was resolved and charging resumed. Laura exhaled sharply, leaning against a console for support. She glanced at Daniel, who gave her a reassuring nod. Though neither of them voiced it, both knew how close they had come to disaster. There was no room for error. Not now. Not ever. As the hours ticked by, the sense of urgency grew palpable. Outside, explosions echoed in the distance, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Inside, the hum of machinery mingled with the sound of rapid typing and hurried footsteps. Everyone worked with singular focus, driven by the knowledge that the fate of humanity rested in their hands. Finally, the QDA reached 80% capacity. Laura announced the milestone to the room, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "We're almost there," she said. "Just a little longer." Cheers erupted briefly before being silenced by the realization that the hardest part still lay ahead. Activating the array would require perfect precision and nerves of steel. In the corner of the room, Ethan whispered another prayer. Beside him, Clara stared at the countdown timer, her lips moving silently as if rehearsing the steps in her mind. Daniel paced back and forth, checking and rechecking every detail of the operation. He thought about the people counting on them, the families huddled in basements, the soldiers risking their lives, the leaders making impossible decisions. Failure wasn't an option. Above ground, the skies remained dark, heavy with the presence of the alien fleet. The Vorthok flagship loomed largest of all, its golden surface gleaming ominously in the dim light. From within, the Emperor watched Earth's feeble attempts to resist, confident that victory was inevitable. He had seen countless civilizations fall before his empire's might, and he saw no reason why humanity would be any different. But he didn't know about Project Horizon, he didn't know about the QDA, and he certainly didn't know that deep beneath the surface a group of ordinary humans was about to change the course of history. As the final minutes approached, Laura turned to Daniel one last time. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the din of activity. Daniel met her gaze, his expression unwavering. "Ready as I'll ever be," he replied. Together they prepared to face the unknown, knowing that whatever happened next would define the future of humanity, for better or worse. The clock ticked down relentlessly, each second feeling like an eternity. Inside the control room beneath the Nevada desert, the air was thick with tension. Monitors displayed streams of data, blinking lights, and countdown timers that seemed to mock everyone's nerves. Laura Bennett stood at the center of it all, her eyes glued to the screen showing the power levels of the Quantum Disruption Array, QDA. The device had reached 95% capacity, and every beep from the system felt like a heartbeat, steady but fragile. Around her, technicians scrambled to ensure everything was in place, their movements sharp and precise. Ethan, the young technician, who had been whispering prayers earlier, now focused intently on his console, checking for any anomalies. Clara, the scientist who had double-checked the calculations, hovered nearby, ready to intervene if something went wrong. Daniel Carter paced back and forth, his boots echoing softly on the metal floor. He glanced at the countdown timer again. Less than 30 minutes remained until the QDA would be fully charged and ready to activate. Outside, the sounds of distant explosions filtered through the reinforced walls, a grim reminder of the chaos unfolding above ground. Fighter jets streaked across the sky, engaging smaller scout ships from the Vorthok fleet in a desperate attempt to distract them. Ground forces fought bravely, holding defensive lines as best they could, but the invaders' superior technology made every victory costly. Still, Daniel knew these efforts were buying precious time. Every moment counted. "Power level stable," Laura announced, breaking the silence. Her voice was calm, though her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted settings on the main console. "We're almost there." Daniel nodded, his jaw clenched tightly. He trusted Laura completely, but he couldn't shake the weight of responsibility, pressing down on him. If this plan failed, Earth would fall. There would be no second chances. He thought about the people depending on them, the soldiers risking their lives, the civilians hiding in fear, the leaders making impossible decisions. Failure wasn't an option. Outside the bunker, the world continued to burn. Fires raged through cities, sending plumes of smoke into the darkened skies. The Vorthok ships unleashed devastating beams of energy, obliterating buildings and infrastructure with horrifying precision. In New York City, where the QDA was being transported, streets lay deserted except for military vehicles patrolling cautiously. Civilians had been evacuated hours ago, leaving behind a ghost town bathed in eerie red light from the alien fleet hovering overhead. Soldiers stationed near the deployment site kept watch nervously, knowing their role was crucial, yet painfully exposed. They exchanged quiet words of encouragement, clinging to hope even as despair loomed large. Back in the control room, President Rachel Monroe appeared on one of the monitors, delivering another emergency broadcast. Her face was tired but resolute, her voice steady as she spoke directly to the nation. "Hold on just a little longer," she urged. "Our finest minds are working tirelessly to protect us. Trust in them. Trust in yourselves. We will not surrender, not today, not ever." Her words resonated deeply with those watching, offering a sliver of hope amidst the destruction. For many, it was enough to keep going, to believe that humanity still had a fighting chance. As the countdown entered its final 10 minutes, the team prepared for activation. Laura reviewed the steps one last time, ensuring everyone understood their roles. When I give the signal, she instructed, start the sequence immediately, no hesitation. We've only got one shot at this. Nods rippled through the room as technicians confirmed readiness. Ethan tightened his grip on the controls, taking a deep breath to steady himself. Clara stood close by, her fingers hovering over her keyboard, ready to input the final commands. Daniel moved to stand beside Laura, his presence grounding her. Above ground, the Vorthok fleet grew restless. Smaller scout ships darted around erratically, searching for targets to destroy. The flagship, massive and imposing, hung ominously in the sky, its golden surface gleaming under artificial light. From within, the Emperor watched Earth's resistance with growing impatience. He had expected submission by now, not defiance. His cold, mechanical voice echoed through communication channels once more. Your time is running out, he declared. Surrender or perish. The choice is yours. Inside the bunker, no one flinched at the threat. Instead, they focused on the task at hand. The countdown hit 5 minutes, 4, 3, 2, 1. Full charge achieved, Laura announced, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. She turned to Daniel, her expression unreadable. It's time. Daniel gave a single nod. Do it. Without hesitation, Laura initiated the activation sequence. A low hum filled the control room as the QDA powered up, its energy building steadily. On the monitors, graphs spiked sharply, indicating the immense force being generated. Technicians monitored every aspect closely, shouting updates to one another as the process unfolded. Ethan's hands flew across his console, adjusting frequencies to maintain stability. Clara entered the final calculations, her fingers moving so fast they blurred. Outside, the ground vibrated faintly as the array prepared to unleash its payload. Then, it happened. A blinding pulse of energy surged outward from the QDA, invisible to the naked eye but detectable through its effects. The pulse rippled through the atmosphere, spreading rapidly toward the alien fleet. For a brief moment, everything seemed frozen. The roar of explosions, the cries of panic, the hum of machinery, all silenced as the QDA unleashed its full power. One by one, the Vorthok ships began to disintegrate. Their once impenetrable hulls crumbled into dust, their advanced weapon systems rendered useless. Smaller scout ships fell first, dissolving into nothingness before they could react. Larger vessels followed, their golden surfaces cracking and collapsing under the strain. The flagship, attempting to retreat, faltered mid-flight. Its engines sputtered, and its massive frame shuddered violently before exploding in a burst of fiery light that lit up the night sky. Cheers erupted in the control room as news of the victory spread. Technicians hugged one another, tears streaming down their faces. Ethan sank into his chair, overcome with relief, while Clara let out a shaky laugh, her hands trembling as she covered her mouth. Laura stared at the monitors, disbelief written across her face. It had worked. Against all odds, humanity had triumphed. Daniel allowed himself a small smile, though his mind was already racing ahead. He knew the battle wasn't truly over. Destroying the fleet didn't mean the Vorthok Empire itself was defeated. If anything, this act of defiance might provoke even greater retaliation. But for now, they had won, and that was enough. Above ground, the skies cleared slowly as the remnants of the alien ships burned brightly against the void of space. Soldiers lowered their weapons, stunned by what they had witnessed. Civilians emerged cautiously from shelters, gazing upward in awe and disbelief. News broadcasts flashed images of the destroyed fleet, accompanied by jubilant headlines declaring humanity's victory. People hugged one another, cried openly, and cheered loudly, celebrating a miracle none of them had dared to imagine possible. In the bunker, President Monroe addressed the nation once more. Her voice was filled with emotion as she thanked the heroes of Project Horizon and praised the resilience of humanity. Today we have proven that we are stronger together, she said. Stronger than fear, stronger than tyranny, stronger than any force that seeks to destroy us. This is our moment. a testament to who we are and what we can achieve when we stand united. As the celebrations continued above ground, Daniel turned to Laura, his expression sober despite the joy surrounding them. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "They'll come back, and next time they won't underestimate us." Laura nodded, her gaze fixed on the monitors displaying the aftermath. "Then we'll be ready," she replied, "because giving up isn't in our nature." Together they stood in silence, watching as the first rays of dawn broke through the darkness, signaling a new beginning for humanity, and perhaps a new chapter in its struggle for survival. The victory was sweet, but it didn't last long. As the dust settled, both literally and figuratively, Daniel Carter and Laura Bennett found themselves facing a new reality. The Vorthok fleet had been destroyed, yes, but the implications of what they had done weighed heavily on their minds. Humanity had struck back against one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy, and while the immediate threat was gone, the consequences were far from over. In the days following the battle, Earth began the slow process of recovery. Cities that had been reduced to rubble were now scenes of frantic rebuilding efforts. Emergency crews worked around the clock to clear debris, restore power, and provide shelter for displaced families. Hospitals overflowed with the injured, and volunteers from all walks of life stepped up to help however they could. Despite the devastation, there was a sense of unity among people. Strangers shared food and supplies, neighbors helped each other rebuild, and communities came together in ways no one had expected. It was as if the invasion had awakened something deep within humanity, a determination to survive and thrive, no matter the odds. But Daniel knew better than to let hope blind him to the bigger picture. He gathered his team in the underground bunker once more, this time to discuss what came next. "We've won this round," he began, pacing slowly in front of the group. "But we need to be ready for the next one. The Vorthok Empire isn't just going to walk away after losing an entire fleet. They'll come back, and when they do, they'll bring everything they've got." Laura nodded in agreement. She stood beside him, her expression thoughtful as she addressed the room. "What we did with the Quantum Disruption Array QDA was unprecedented," she said. "It gave us a fighting chance, but it also sent a message. We've shown them that we're not helpless, that we can fight back. But now, they know our capabilities, and they'll adapt." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed her words. Ethan, the young technician who had played a key role in activating the QDA, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "So what does that mean for us?" he asked hesitantly. "Do we build more arrays, or is there something else we should focus on?" Laura exchanged a glance with Daniel before answering. "Both," she said simply. "We need to improve the QDA and develop new technologies to defend ourselves. But we also need to think beyond weapons. If we want to survive in the long term, we have to prepare for anything, including the possibility that the Vorthok Empire might not be the only threat out there." Her statement sent a ripple of unease through the room. Until now, most people had assumed the Vorthok were the sole enemy. The idea that there might be others lurking in the vastness of space was unsettling, to say the least. Clara, the scientist who had helped fine-tune the QDA, raised her hand cautiously. "Are you saying there are more alien civilizations like the Vorthok?" she asked. "Maybe," Laura replied. "We don't know. Space is vast, and we've barely scratched the surface of understanding it. What we do know is that the Vorthok aren't the only advanced species out there. And if word gets out about how we handled them, others might see us as either a threat or a target." Daniel took over, his tone firm but reassuring. "That's why we need to act fast. This isn't just about defending Earth anymore. It's about ensuring humanity's survival in the galaxy. We need to expand our reach, to explore space, establish colonies, and secure resources so we're not vulnerable if another attack comes." My plan was ambitious, but it made sense. Over the next few weeks, governments around the world pooled their resources to accelerate humanity's progress into space. Research teams worked tirelessly to study the remnants of the Vorthok ships, reverse engineering their technology to create faster spacecraft, stronger defenses, and more efficient energy systems. Factories churned out prototypes of new weapons and tools designed to protect Earth and its future colonies. Meanwhile, astronomers scanned the skies for signs of activity, hoping to detect any approaching threats before it was too late. Back on Earth, public morale remained high despite the looming uncertainty. News outlets celebrated the victory, hailing humanity's ingenuity and resilience. Documentaries aired highlighting the heroes of Project Horizon, including Daniel, Laura, and their team. People looked up at the stars with a mix of pride and wonder, knowing that Earth had taken its first step onto the galactic stage. But beneath the surface, fear lingered. Everyone knew the peace wouldn't last forever. Laura spent countless hours in the lab, refining the QDA and exploring ways to make it safer and more effective. She collaborated with engineers and physicists from around the globe, sharing ideas and testing theories. Her goal was simple: to ensure humanity would never find itself defenseless again. At the same time, she pushed for research into non-military applications of quantum energy manipulation, believing that such knowledge could benefit humanity in countless ways. Daniel, meanwhile, focused on strategy. He coordinated with military leaders worldwide to establish a global defense network capable of responding to any threat, whether terrestrial or extraterrestrial. Satellite arrays were deployed to monitor Earth's orbit, while ground-based installations, armed with experimental weapons, stood ready to intercept invaders. Training programs were developed to prepare soldiers for combat in space, emphasizing teamwork, adaptability, and innovation. Despite their efforts, both Daniel and Laura couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing against time. Reports began trickling in suggesting that the Vorthok Empire spanned dozens of star systems, each home to billions of beings loyal to their emperor. Losing a single fleet wouldn't deter them, not when their empire stretched across light years of space. Preparations for another assault became a top priority, with humanity investing heavily in space exploration and colonization efforts to ensure survival beyond Earth. One evening, as the sun set over the Nevada desert, Daniel and Laura stepped outside the bunker to get some fresh air. The sky was clear, dotted with stars that seemed impossibly distant yet somehow closer than ever before. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply stood there, taking in the quiet beauty of the night. Finally, Laura broke the silence. "Do you ever wonder what's out there?" she asked softly, gesturing toward the heavens. "I mean, really wonder." "All the time," Daniel admitted. "It's terrifying, but also exciting. There's so much we don't know, so much we haven't seen, and now, because of what we've done, we're part of it, whether we like it or not." Laura smiled faintly. "I guess that's the thing about being human, isn't it? We're always reaching for something bigger, even when it scares us." Daniel nodded. "Yeah. And maybe that's why we'll make it, because we refuse to give up." As they turned to head back inside, the weight of their responsibility settled over them once more. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with challenges and dangers they couldn't yet imagine. But they weren't alone. All around the world, people were working together, driven by a shared purpose, to protect their home and carve out a place for humanity among the stars. Inside the HFY bunker, work continued late into the night. Monitors displayed streams of data, scientists debated theories, and technicians fine-tuned equipment. Outside, the stars twinkled brightly, watching silently as Earth prepared for whatever lay ahead. Humanity had proven it could fight back, but the real challenge was proving it could endure, and endure it would. Months passed since the destruction of the Vorthok fleet, and Earth began to change in ways no one could have predicted. The victory had ignited a spark within humanity, a determination not just to survive, but to thrive. Nations that had once been divided now worked together with a shared purpose, to prepare for the challenges ahead. Cities rebuilt themselves stronger than before, incorporating new technologies salvaged from the remnants of the alien ships. Skyscrapers gleamed under the sun, their designs inspired by both human ingenuity and alien engineering. Streets buzzed with activity as people adapted to a world forever altered by its brush with extinction. Daniel Carter and Laura Bennett remained at the heart of humanity's efforts, guiding Project Horizon into uncharted territory. While the immediate threat of the Vorthok Empire loomed large, they knew the real challenge was ensuring Earth's long-term survival. Their focus shifted from defense to exploration, from fear to hope. Humanity wasn't content to simply wait for another attack. It wanted to expand, to explore the stars, and to secure its place in the galaxy. Under Daniel's leadership, a global defense network took shape. Satellites equipped with advanced sensors monitored Earth's orbit, scanning for any sign of approaching threats. Ground-based installations armed with experimental weapons stood ready to intercept invaders. Training programs prepared soldiers for combat in space, emphasizing teamwork, adaptability, and innovation. Meanwhile, Laura spearheaded research into quantum energy manipulation, pushing the boundaries of what humanity thought was possible. Her team developed new tools to harness energy more efficiently, creating power sources capable of sustaining colonies far beyond Earth. But perhaps the most ambitious project was humanity's push into space. Engineers designed sleek, fast spacecraft, capable of traveling vast distances. Astronomers mapped nearby star systems, searching for habitable planets where humans could establish colonies. Factories churned out supplies, food, water, medicine, and building materials that would sustain these settlements. It was a monumental task, requiring cooperation on a scale never seen before. Yet, despite the challenges, progress was steady. 1 evening, as Daniel and Laura stood on a hill overlooking the Nevada desert, they reflected on how far humanity had come. The sky above them glittered with stars, each one a reminder of the possibilities and dangers that lay ahead. "We've done so much," Laura said softly, her voice tinged with awe. "But it feels like we're just getting started." Daniel nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "It's strange, isn't it? For so long we were focused on protecting Earth. Now we're thinking about leaving it behind." "Not leaving it behind," Laura corrected gently. "Expanding. Building. Something bigger. Something better." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, you're right." Their conversation was interrupted by Ethan, the young technician who had played such a crucial role during the battle against the Vorthok. He approached hesitantly, holding a tablet in his hands. "Sorry to bother you," he said, glancing between Daniel and Laura. "But there's something you need to see." Curious, they followed him back to the control room. Inside, monitors displayed streams of data, blinking lights, and diagrams showing trajectories of objects moving through space. Clara, the scientist who had helped fine-tune the Quantum Disruption Array, QDA, stood beside one of the screens, her expression tense. "We picked up signals," she explained. "Multiple ships. They're heading this way." For a moment, the room fell silent. Everyone exchanged worried glances, the weight of the news sinking in. The Vorthok Empire had returned, just as Daniel and Laura had feared. But this time the fleet was larger, much larger. Dozens of ships filled the screen, their jagged forms unmistakable against the backdrop of space. "How long do we have?" Daniel asked, his voice steady despite the knot forming in his stomach. "At their current speed, they'll reach Earth in 3 weeks," Clara replied. "Maybe less if they accelerate." 3 weeks. It wasn't enough time to fully prepare, but it was enough to act. Daniel turned to Laura, his eyes locking onto hers. "What's our next move?" Laura didn't hesitate. "We activate the QDA again," she said firmly. "But this time we don't wait for them to get close. We hit them in space." The plan was risky, but it made sense. By targeting the fleet while it was still en route to Earth, humanity could minimize collateral damage and buy itself more time to fortify its defenses. Engineers scrambled to modify the QDA for use in orbit, attaching it to a newly constructed spacecraft designed for deep space missions. Pilots trained tirelessly, preparing to navigate the ship into position without being detected by the enemy. Meanwhile, governments around the world issued emergency broadcasts, urging citizens to remain calm and trust in humanity's ability to defend itself. President Rachel Monroe addressed the nation once more, her voice filled with resolve. "We've faced this enemy before, and we've emerged victorious," she declared. "Together, we will stand firm. Together, we will protect our home." As preparations continued, Daniel and Laura found themselves reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. From the moment the Vorthok fleet descended upon Earth to the present day, humanity had proven time and again that it was capable of overcoming even the greatest challenges. They had united, adapted, and innovated in ways no one had thought possible. And now, as they prepared to face the Vorthok once more, they carried with them the lessons of the past and the hope of the future. The day of the mission arrived sooner than anyone expected. The spacecraft carrying the QDA launched into orbit, its sleek design cutting through Earth's atmosphere with ease. Aboard the vessel, a small crew of pilots and technicians monitored every aspect of the operation, their nerves taut, but their determination unwavering. Back on Earth, Daniel and Laura watched anxiously from the control room, their hearts pounding as the countdown began. When the QDA activated, a pulse of energy surged outward, invisible to the naked eye but detectable through its effects. One by one, the Vorthok ships disintegrated, their massive forms crumbling into dust. Cheers erupted in the control room as news of the victory spread. Once again, humanity had triumphed, not through brute force, but through ingenuity and collaboration. Yet, as the celebrations unfolded, Daniel and Laura couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Destroying the fleet didn't mean the Empire was gone. If anything, they had only delayed the inevitable. The Vorthok would regroup, rebuild, and return with even greater vengeance. Humanity's fight was far from over. Standing together on the hill once more, they gazed up at the stars. "This is just the beginning," Laura said quietly. "There's so much more out there waiting for us." Daniel nodded, his expression resolute. "And we'll be ready." Above them, the night sky stretched endlessly, filled with countless possibilities. Each star was a reminder of both the dangers and opportunities that awaited humanity in the vast expanse of the cosmos. Whatever came next, one thing was certain: humanity would endure.